on our YouTube channel. However, you don't need to worry. As long as you stay muted, you are not being recorded. Only those of us speaking and with this yellow speakers box around us are going to be in the recording. So you don't need to worry about that part of things. Throughout the evening, you can put any questions that you have for our guests into the chat, and Davith and I will store those up for you and pose them for you towards the end of the event. So please feel free to type in questions at any time. We will keep those and we will ask your questions for you in that way. And then we just want to give a shout out to all of you and thank you very much for your continuing support of independent bookstores. This is a tough year for small local businesses, as I think everybody knows, and the continued support of the community shopping local, not just with us, but with your other favorite small businesses, really makes all the difference this holiday season. So thank you for that. And without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to Davith to introduce our guest this evening.
Well, thanks so much, Rachel. It is my real pleasure to introduce John Gray. He's an Emmy Award-winning television journalist on WNET and a columnist in upstate New York. He's also a great friend of the Northshire bookstores and other indie bookstores too. He's the author of the popular children's books, God Needed a Puppy and Keller's Heart. He's joining us today for the publication of his new children's book, Sweet Polly Petals, and his debut novel, Manchester Christmas. And we are lucky to be joined by Shanna Brickell, who is the illustrator of all of John's books and did the cover of Manchester Christmas. Please welcome John and Shanna to Northshire Live.
Well, hello, everybody. This is John. I'm in Rensselaer County, New York right now. And Shanna, where are you exactly? Virginia?
Rogersville, Tennessee, visiting family.
Oh, so you're in Tennessee. Good for you. Well, welcome. It must be chilly in Tennessee. We see you got a jacket on there. I'm in the house, so it's snowing. Yeah, well, Tennessee's pretty in the snow, I'm guessing. Of course, we're talking about Manchester Christmas. It had a snow. I just want to thank everybody for coming on today and doing this little launch here on Northshire. I am a huge supporter of independent bookstores and smaller bookstores, and it's Northshire has a special place in my heart, Davos, just so you know, because as a kid, my family and I used to take trips over to Manchester, and we had our own little routine of the places we would shop at and where you get your cider donuts in the fall. And I always loved going into that bookstore right there at the center of that whole intersection. It's 7 and 7A, and it just and right around the corner is that great breakfast place for breakfast. But I love that bookstore, and to think that my books are being sold there now is really amazing. So thank you for having us on. So Shanna, let me ask you a question. I know you want to ask me a couple questions. For those who don't understand what an illustrator does, people love to say, "Oh, she drew the pictures." You don't really draw, do you? You paint.
I might sketch something, but yeah, then I move it to acrylics is my preferred. It's faster. You can get that result and know that you're on the right track pretty quickly, or restart over if you don't like it.
Right.
So
now, for those who don't know, Shanna and I were not best friends before all this began. Shanna was on my Facebook page, and we became friends after we lost a puppy, and Shanna had done a beautiful cover of our dog Samuel, and that became the cover for God Needed a Puppy. That's how we met, because of an act of kindness from Shanna. And I'll always be forever grateful for that. And what's crazy, talk about little God winks and things, Shanna. You always wanted to be an illustrator of children's books. I always thought someday I would write a book. I ended up writing a book. We end up meeting this way, and then your dream comes true as well, right?
Correct. Yeah. And it was also not just, it was you sharing your gift. And when you shared about Samuel, how heartbroken you and Courtney were, I just broke down in tears. I mean, it just touched my heart. You shared what most pet owners feel when we lose that fur baby. And I just felt moved to give you something, not to fix what went wrong, but to try to tell you, that your sharing is what all of us go through, that loss. And you could have kept it quiet and not shared it, but it felt like you guys poured your heart out. And that's what really touched me to paint Samuel.
Right. Well,
and then it kind of went from there.
Yeah, Shanna, for those of you listening and watching on this Zoom conference, she did the first book, and then when Keller's Heart was written, I sent the book to Shanna, and she did all the beautiful pictures in there for Keller's Heart. And then when Polly Petals was written, it was the same thing. Our process is I write the story first, and then when I'm pretty sure it's done, then I send it to Shanna, and there's no timetable. It's like when she's ready to paint, she paints, and when she's done, she's done. And that's really worked well for both you and I.
Yeah. Same with Manchester. I mean, what inspired you, John, to write Manchester? I mean, I've heard the stories on the others of where you'd get this inspiration and you'd get blocked until you wrote it. Like you have to sit down and write it. How did Manchester Christmas come across?
2 years ago, like this month, I had a dream, and I never remember dreams, but if I dream and then wake right up, I might remember the dream. I don't know if that's normal for people. If I dream at 1 o'clock in the morning and wake up at 6, I'm not remembering the dream. But I dreamt of a guy, not a woman, in a church by herself, and it looked like an old rundown church, and he was looking at the windows, and I kind of was just standing watching this guy, not knowing what he was doing, and then he was fascinated with the window, and he turned to me and said, "Did you see that?" I said, "See what?" He said, "It just changed." And I said, "What changed?" He goes, "The window." And I looked, I go, "It looks the same to me." He goes, "No, something's there. It wasn't there before." And then I woke up and I was like, okay, that was a weird dream. And when I first started sketching the idea of the story in my head, I thought it was going to be a guy who was the main character. And I don't know, it didn't feel right. And I wanted to be kind of not too young, but not too, sort of a late 30s, middle 30-year-old woman who was on this quest to be the person who'd become the sort of the hero of the story. And I knew she had a weird name or a different name. I wanted her to be named Sarah or Jennifer or Mary. Those are great names, but I wanted to give her a different name. And Chase popped in my head. So that's where that came from. Really, it started with a dream, and the rest of the story kind of happened as it went. So and for those of you who don't know, Shanna did the cover of Manchester Christmas. So when you see that book, I mean, I've picked up books my whole life in bookstores, and the cover really does matter. And anything on the back of the cover where if there's a quote from somebody, like we have Richard Evans with a nice quote, but the cover has to grab you. And you did such a nice job with that. And for those watching, it was not like Shanna sits down and an hour later says, "Here." We drove her crazy with this cover because I was trying to explain what the story was to Shanna, but she hadn't read the story. And you were making beautiful covers, but they weren't just right. And then finally Shanna said, "Just send me the book." And I had to send her the file. And then after, you read it pretty quick, didn't you?
Yeah, I couldn't put it down, to be honest. And I'm not saying that. I mean, it was truly, it pulled me in. I wanted all the little town, the characters, everything. And so I read it within like 2 days. And then the original cover that I'd started with, I just scrapped it. I started over and came up with this one, and then tweaked it based on John and the publisher kind of feedback on, and then making the book jacket was a little different than the typical cover. So we had to modify it further, to make it fit so that it wrapped.
Right. And you were very patient with everybody, because there's more than one cook in these kitchens when it becomes a book title. For those of you watching, there's my little dog Bella, who just came to say hi. Hi, Bella.
Aww.
But it's not just me saying, "Oh, that looks good." It's the editor who works at the publishing house. It's their graphics people. It's 5-6 people have to look at whatever you're doing and saying, "I like it, but the sky's going to be too dark when they print up, so it should be a little brighter here, a little darker there, a little this, a little that." And also silly things I never think of, like, where are we going to put the title?
Words,
where are we going to put his name? Yeah, where are we going to put his name? And I've never thought about that with a cover of a book, that you just can't. I mean, you can do whatever you want, but if there's nowhere to put things, you'll get done and go, "It's brilliant," like a piece of art, and then go, "Oh wait, there's nowhere to put,"
I had to learn that.
Yeah,
I had to learn that because you have to leave space for the title and all of the things they have to put on there on the back, etc. So
right,
it's not
I
just
learned something. I learned something recently too, that most stores, and I don't know if Northshire does this, if you're going to have a sticker that says "signed by author," it's supposed to go in the lower right corner of the book, which I had no idea about that. So with Polly, here's Polly Petals. It doesn't work. They have to put it on the other side, but it works out fine with Manchester. But it's like one of those things you learn as you go. But but yeah, so it was a lot of fun to write Manchester Christmas. I didn't know when I started if I could even do it, because people say all the time, you should write a book, you should write a book. It's a scary thing because you don't know if you can do it the first time, and you don't know, even if you get done with it, will it be any good? Will anybody like it? Because it's not like if you sit at home on a weekend, you paint a picture, or I write a short story, you say, all right, before you hand me the story, how much time did you put in this? I might say, oh, I really worked in this, and I put in like 4 hours. You go, okay. Well, if it's a terrible story, people go, I gotta be honest with you, I didn't like the story. You're out 4 hours. With a novel, 80,000 words, you're probably gonna be out, 3-4 months of your life if nobody likes it. And you're like, wow, that was a lot of time invested in something that never became anything. It'd be like you doing like all kinds of artwork and sitting in the park with them trying to sell them and not selling any. You of course would, but it'd be like, boy, I killed myself on that one. And everybody's looking at it going, I wish the sky was bluer, that kind of thing. So
you're like, great, thanks.
Right. But yeah, so I didn't know if I could even do it, but about a little less than halfway through, I saw the rest of the story in my head, and I realized, I think I could do this. I literally went to word count to see how many words I had, and I had like 27,000 words. And I went, oh my God, I've got that many words already. I Googled how long should a book be? And it said most books are about 80,000 words, but some could be shorter and some could be certainly longer. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to shoot for 80,000. It was a complete fluke that when I got done with the story, it was like 80,000 and like 200 words. I was like, oh my gosh, I almost hit it on the dime. So it was kind of funny. But
yeah,
for those of you who may wonder about you've done these books. Are you looking to do other books with other authors, or are you too busy with your real job, so to speak?
I'm certainly busy with my real job, but open to, inquiries of potential projects. Certainly, always. I mean, it's my passion. I would just love to do this full time. I told my grandfather when I was little, when I grow up, I want to do art, work with kids and animals, and that's exactly what Samuel God Need a Puppy. That book gave me that opportunity to do what I've loved since I was a small child. So
right. Well, you're so good at it. You really are. What's interesting too is
it's been perfect.
Funny things happen with this book too. For those of you who might have, I'm sure you've seen the cover of Manchester Christmas. Shanna, she read the book and just painted what she thought in her mind. And yeah, and that white steeple there's literally a church that's exactly like that right in the middle of the heart of Manchester. If people go to my Facebook page, in fact, I posted a picture of the woman holding the book in front of that church. So like Shanna, you've never been to Manchester, Vermont, I'm assuming.
Nope.
And she's never seen that church, but for whatever reason that popped in Shanna's head, and it's freaky in a way, because it's like we're both getting help from somebody going, here, do this. So
yeah,
but
it's true. Like with your writing, you said you get this like urge to in it, like it's like a data dump, and the art, the same thing. I start painting and I kind of get pulled into this zone where it just kind of flows. It's easy. When it's hard, I know I'm on the wrong track.
That's exactly right. So. That's exactly right. Like I've never gotten writer's block. I've had bad writing where it's just not working. But to me, it's never writer's block. It's just like I'm on the wrong path here. But when you have the right idea, it does go pretty quick. It also, I don't
get a painter's block either. It's just it's not quite right, and it's never a struggle to paint. It's just not. It doesn't feel right with the book or whatever, whatever it is the project is.
I find too, you see this is true with you, that if it's going well, 2 hours will go by and you think it's like 40 minutes. You look and go, oh wow, I've been doing this for a while, and it didn't feel like 2 hours at all. That's always a good sign too.
Yeah, I've gotten done at 1 or 2 in the morning and go, oops, I didn't know it was this late. Stop painting, go to bed.
It's the
or as a kid, I'd be I'd be in my room all day. My mom would come knock on the door and say, are you going to come have dinner? I'd be like, what? Like the whole day's gone? I've been in here drawing and painting.
Right. That's, yeah. I was going to say, it's the opposite of working out, where you think, is this class over yet? You have 37 minutes left, as you're dying on the mat.
True.
True. I don't know if the folks at Northshire, I'm sure they're listening, if they want to, we've been talking about 16 or 17 minutes, maybe. Do you want to open things up to questions a little bit? Because Shanna and I could talk all day, but I'd rather include the people who are watching if they have questions.
Yeah, if people have questions that you'd like to ask either John or Shanna, just type them in the chat and Davith and I will pose them for you at any point. We're happy to do that. And John, I'd love it if you could tell us a little bit about the inspiration behind Manchester Christmas and Little Polly Petals, since those are the newest, but what sort of were the seeds of those?
Polly, you know, Shanna alluded to it earlier about when something blocks me. Polly, the little girl in Polly, whose name is Polly, she really blocked me. She, sometimes I get it, it's almost like a postcard image. It's not moving, it's just an image. And I had an image of a little girl holding a flower, a purple flower, which was an orchid. And it popped in my head and I swiped it away and I went about my business and it popped up there again and it swapped it. And I wanted to start writing this book and Polly kept stepping in front of me going, no, me first. And right about that time, I just had really been seeing a lot of homeless in our area. And somehow I connected the two in my brain that Polly's whole mission was maybe use this flower to help people. And then the idea of Polly meeting a homeless woman in the park and being given this magic flower. What I really liked about Polly though was that it only grants wishes if they're for other people. So many things, everything I grew up watching was the magic lamp where the genie comes out and you have all these wishes for you. I want to be rich, I want to be famous, I want to be able to fly. I wanted it where the wishes don't work unless they're for somebody else. And that, I thought it'd be a good lesson for kids and school kids. And that's where that came from in terms of Polly. It's funny, both Keller's Heart and Polly both got written over Thanksgiving's weekend, a couple of years apart. So I don't know what it is about Thanksgiving weekend. Maybe I'm feeling grateful in my heart and these stories come. This year I'm working on the sequel to Manchester Christmas. So there's no children's book right now. Manchester Christmas, I said, it started with a dream. And then I wasn't sure where the story was going to go. And then I literally sat down January 6th of 2019. It was a Sunday, and I started writing it. And then a week later, a coworker, unfortunately, sadly died where I work at the TV station, young woman named Taylor Farnsworth. And it affected us all greatly. And it really pulled me in a way where I wanted to, I was thinking about Taylor because she was kind of an artist, red hair, very much like the description of the woman in the book, the young lady in the book. And I wanted to include her in the story in some way as sort of a tribute to her. But I also thought, what would happen to a town if a little town, if someone did pass, and how could it affect people in different ways? And maybe the stranger coming in would be the one who could see it because she's from the outside coming in to see all these cracks that she could help fill and put together. So that's kind of where that story came from. It started with a dream, but then it took a turn when a coworker literally died very young at 23. And so that's kind of where that came from. The rest of the story, I don't know. I'm sure Shanna would agree. You open your mind, you kind of look up at the clouds and go, okay, give me something to work with here. And something pops in your head and then you're off to the races.
Yep. And when I read it, I told John, I said, this is like a Hallmark Lifetime movie. This is like, I can see this playing as a movie in my head already. It was just so real feeling the characters. Like you want to know all of the little characters in the book and the dogs and the kitty cat that, I mean, it's so touching. It's not just the main character that kind of pulls you in.
Right.
So
well, I wanted that. I'm a big fan of a writer named David Milch who went to Yale, and he should have went and wrote novels, but instead he wanted to write for TV, and he started at NYPD Blue where he won a bunch of Emmys. Then he did he started Hill Street Blues where he won a bunch of Emmys. Then he did NYPD Blue. That was his show. They did other shows like Deadwood. But I've watched a lot of. He was a teacher at heart. I watched some of his tutorials going back to Yale and different colleges, and he always said he writes secondary characters really well. And someone said, "What is it about your secondary characters?" And he said, "I won't put anybody in a story who you couldn't. If you watch it and I did my job, you'll think you could do a story just about that guy or about that woman." Yeah. And it was important to me that the characters, the ancillary characters, the secondary characters, supporting cast were all interesting people that you'd want to know. And I tried to sketch them in a way, to use one of your phrases, sketching, where you could relate in your mind, like I know somebody just like her or just like him. And then when you do that with a story, I think it helps people connect to it better.
Yeah, it's true. I wanted to learn more about all of them throughout the book.
So John,
So-
I've got an audience member asking for a short synopsis of Manchester Christmas, but no spoilers.
No spoilers. Well, the synopsis is it starts with a woman who is trying to get to Manchester. She's from Seattle, and she immediately, like in the first day, meets two very handsome, interesting guys. One's a realtor who's widowed, and one's a farmer who's just, Mr. Stud Muffin. And they're very different guys, and they're both kind of interested in her. And she's kind of like pumping the brakes, like, wait a second, I just got here. She doesn't know why she wants to be in Manchester, other than the fact that she used to look at a calendar page on her room growing up, and it looked like a beautiful place that she always wanted to visit. And she's a writer, and she's very successful, but she just decided, I don't want to write another word till I see this place that I fantasized about as a kid. I want to see if it's really that great at Christmas time. And she goes there, and she ends up living in an old church that gets converted into a house. And once she goes in there, something almost supernatural or magical starts to happen. And there's other things going on in town, but it's very much a town it's a wonderful town with sweet people, but it's been broken by the death of a young woman in a lot of different ways. And this stranger ends up almost being used in a way to help the town without giving too much away. That's kind of what the story is. But you get to sort of ride along with her. Her name is Chase, and think to yourself, what would I do if I were in her shoes right now? And that's really what I wanted to make you feel like you were with her the whole way in the story. And there's definitely a surprise ending. I'll say that.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. There's a question here from Rosemary, and is Keller by your feet, John? I had heard about your famous dog.
He's always at my feet when I write, but my wife is home now, so he's in the other room. I just had Bella here. I've got a German Shepherd out the door right now. But if my wife is home, he's probably laying on the couch with her. But if my wife is not home, he would be right here at my feet as I write. So yeah, I'm not writing at the moment, so he's not here. But the minute I start writing, he'll come running in. But that's a good question. I have somebody just came in. That's Bella. She's deaf. She's our newest one. She's a year old right now, but she's a good girl. You want to say hi to everybody? Yeah. We have a bell on the back door, like a sleigh bell, and she rings the bell. She was taught as a baby to ring the bell when she has to go to the bathroom. So she goes over to the door and rings the bell, and she has to go out, or she rings the bell, goes out and plays. And then 2 minutes later, this is her brother who's very jealous. This is Eli. He's like, what are you doing? What are you doing giving him all the attention? I want to play with you. So this is typical Eli. He didn't know where she was for a second, so he comes running in to say stop playing with him. But
siblings are siblings, whatever species
yes.
they are.
Yep.
Yes.
Jealous.
We've got a question for you, Shanna, from Ro. She asks, can you tell us a little bit about what you do for a living when you're not illustrating?
I am a proposal manager for a government contractor, and I've done that for 34 years.
Cool.
And they're thinking they have no idea what that means.
It's a lot of paper that we submit to the government, convincing them to pick us to do the work that they need done and to win that contract.
So nothing remotely close to painting.
Nope. It's
So
total
probably some of
left
the
brain.
same.
Total left brain.
Yeah.
All logic, and the right brain is my stress reliever, my art side that that's what I do for fun.
So we have a question here for John from Teresa.
Okay.
She asks, and also a comment. Her comment is that, John, you're right, Shanna's paintings are amazing. So a comment/compliment. And then she asks if you think that you'll be doing any book signings in the future.
I would love to. What I'm trying to do is get to stores like a Northshire and sign them. In fact, I have to get to you guys and sign some books. But right now, because of COVID and not wanting people bunched together, we just can't do it. Shanna usually would drive up and we'd have a huge crowd somewhere for a signing. But we both would feel awful if somebody ever got sick because they went to a signing or were in a crowd. So It's just one of those things that we'll chalk it up to 2020, where everything else got kind of screwed up and canceled between, your summer vacations and your Thanksgivings and everything else. But this with the vaccines, I'm hoping this will be over by the spring and summer, and next fall we'll be here, and there should be a sequel book coming out to Manchester Christmas, and we'll also hopefully, we haven't really talked about it. Brian Herzlinger from Hollywood is doing a 3-page treatment this week to shop around Hollywood to try to make the movie on Manchester Christmas. So if he's lucky enough to get a studio interested, and he'll probably shoot a movie in the spring or summer, then he would shoot this movie. And then hopefully next winter you would have this movie coming out of this book, and we would have a second book. And by that time, hopefully we could have a big signing. And I'd almost like a redo on Manchester Christmas with Shanna that, I'd love to have you there to sign, because it's your cover, your artwork. And, if we do end up doing a signing next year, if the movie comes out, have you come back up and we'll do something,
That would be great.
Yeah, and I love doing things with Northshire as well. It's just, you have such a dedicated following up there. I haven't been to an event in Manchester. I'm sure there's the same over there. I know Saratoga's got a big following.
You have the
Thanks
best
so
fans,
much.
John.
This is so exciting. We're looking forward to it. And I think this moves perfectly into Susan's next question, which is, John, who do you see playing Chase in the movie?
It's funny. I told my wife, and I'm debating whether I want to try to do this, because I hate to waste a book and mail it away and know it's going to get thrown in the garbage. But I almost pictured a Jennifer Garner type actress playing Chase a little bit. And I had to kind of visualize somebody in my head, and I had her a little bit in my head, because she's attractive, but she's got a strong confidence to her, if you know the actress I'm talking about. But I'd be happy with any actress who would play Chase. As long as it was a movie, I'd be excited. If it becomes a Hallmark movie or one of those, I know that there's a whole stable of Candice Bure, and there's a whole bunch of actresses that they pick from. But I'd be happy with anybody. It's one of those things where it'd be so neat to just see the words I wrote here on this little computer pop up coming out of someone's mouth on a TV one day. So I'd be happy with whoever they cast, as long as they got the character and love the character. That'd make me happy.
Great. Pamela's next question was, will it be made into a Hallmark movie for Christmas? But she follows that up with, will you be making a cameo appearance in it yourself, like Alfred Hitchcock or something?
It's funny, if it's Brian Herzlinger who bought the rights, I have a funny feeling. I told my wife, I go, if it really happens, wherever they shoot it, he just shot a movie in Toronto, a Christmas movie, which won't run till next year. His one before that, he actually shot near Nashville, that ran a couple of weeks ago on Lifetime. Welcome Home Christmas, I think it was called. It was one with a veteran who came back, and a nice young lady was helping him kind of reconnect after being away at war. I have a feeling wherever he shoots the movie, we're going to go there for a day or two to watch it, because I just want to see the process, not get in the way. But knowing Brian, he'll probably stick me at a table drinking a cup of coffee or something. Yeah, it'd be fun to do that. But I'd probably screw it up by going to the salon and getting my hair done. Everything. Go, you don't look like a normal person now. You look like But we'll see. That'd be kind of fun.
So, John, I would love to ask, you've written picture books before. This is your first novel. Was the
Yes.
writing process substantially different from you writing a novel than writing a picture book?
Yes, very different. I took it a chapter at a time. I never wrote more than one chapter in one sitting. Even if I knew where it was going, it was like I carved the time out. I had to be disciplined about it, at least 2 days a week writing, if not 3. I tried to always commit to 2, and at least commit to a couple to 3 hours for each of those sittings. And it was just a matter of taking it, not, it's like, I'm fascinated with people who climb mountains or like climb Mount Everest. You can't look at the mountain and go, I'm going to climb that. You have to look, I'm here. Like when you climb Everest, there's 4 camps you go to, your base camp, then camp 1, 2, 3, 4, then you go to the summit. Writing the book was like that, where like, I can't even think about the middle of the book or the end of the book. I'm going to think about the beginning and this moment in the book and what my characters are doing. And once that's done, then think, where do I want to go next to the next chapter? So yeah, with a children's book, you sort of think of the whole book at once and walk your way through it, and then go back and fix it and tweak it the way you want to. With this, it was much more daunting, where you can't do that. You have to just take it in little pieces. And when you start getting tired, stop, because it just be done with it and say, that's enough for now, and then go back. The hardest part, like, I wrote the sequel from July to about 3 weeks ago. I took 2 weeks off. Now I'm going through it a second time, fixing it. And this is the part I don't like, because the first time when you write it, you just write it. There's like no rules. You can say what you want. When you go through it the second time, you really have to look and go, well, that word isn't needed. The comma's in the wrong place. That's repetitive. Oh, wait a second. Did I say, Sarah had red hair in chapter 2? I can't remember. And then you got to go back and, oh, I did say that, and you have to fix all that stuff the second time. So the second time through is not fun. It's more, you're getting in there with the tools now, trying to fix it a little bit.
You've talked a little bit about y'all's process working together for the cover. So can you tell us a little bit how it's like, what it's like working together on these books, on these picture books? Well,
Shanna, you couldn't work with a better person than Shanna. I write the story and say, here, and she just goes from there. And like I said, it's good that we're not on the schedule where, like, someone's like, well, you always a book by this date. I can write when I get a story idea, and then I kind of bug her and say, hey, I got one comment. She goes, all right. And there's no timetable really. When she's done, which is kind of a neat way to do it. So you can talk about that too, Shanna.
There's no pressure, and John is just so easy to work with, because he's not pre-decided what he wants for the art. The story kind of picks the art when I read it, and then we tweak it, certainly based on once he visually sees it. But it just seems like it's just a natural fit. His stories just speak to the heart, and I like to paint from the heart, and it just seems to click. And I think that's why his fans just love his page, because he just, speaks from the heart. He and Courtney just are, that kind of giving, kind of caring, and his fans just flock to his page because they're looking for that kind of heart-centered writing and communicating, life, that we're all journeying on this path. So it's just easy to do the art when that story kind of just speaks for itself.
I'll tell you a secret too, for those of you watching. Shanna hides things, little, what do they call them? Christmas ornaments, that what they call them now, like in the books. If you read God Needed a Puppy, that one of the main characters is Edgar the Owl, and then you read Keller's Heart, which has nothing to do with Edgar the Owl, but Edgar makes an appearance hiding in a tree, and she didn't even tell me she did that. I read it the first time. She goes, "Did you see Edgar?" I go, "No. What's Edgar doing in the story?" Oh, there he is, hiding in the tree. And even in Polly Petals, and it's I tell kids a story and they laugh. Shanna, I say, Shanna did the artwork for Polly Petals, and in there was a dog. I think I called him Scooter, the same as the dog in the novel, or something, or Spot or something. But and she drew this, she painted this beautiful little dog. It was perfect for the story, but I said, I kind of wanted my dog Eli to be in a book. So I said, can I swap out the dog and make him Eli? And she had to repaint the whole picture. So she was a good sport about that, but that's why Eli's in the book. But Shanna will hide other dogs. The scene in Polly Petals is a picture where the ice cream truck comes and everybody's running the truck for free ice cream, and you see a German Shepherd or two running. So they're all hiding in there somewhere.
That's Winston. That's Winston. And God Needed a Puppy, I snuck Max in there.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. He's in the canoe.
He's in the canoe. So all of your dogs have been in there except for Bella now.
Right.
She's the newest. She's the newest.
Yeah, Bella will probably be the next book. Something about, we'll have to figure out a Bella story, but yeah. So that's. I think we answered your question, hopefully.
So John, you teased us a little bit by mentioning that you're working on a sequel. Is there anything you're comfortable telling us about that?
Yeah, the sequel will begin. I'm assuming some of the people probably have read the book, so I don't want to give anything away, but it begins with her not in Manchester, but somewhere else, because she has tremendous success from her book that she writes at the end of Manchester Christmas, because she's a writer in the story, and she needs to kind of get out of town for a while, and she's almost hiding out in Manhattan because you can really disappear in a big city. And Gavin is there, her boyfriend. He's going back and forth, so he's with her a lot. And then you meet a whole new cast of characters. I don't want to give too much away, but it's really the two carryover characters to the sequel are Gavin and Chase, obviously. But you meet a whole bunch of new, interesting people in Manhattan, and then something big happens that ends up putting her into a whole new place, and interesting things start happening again, similar but different from what happened with the church. She sort of almost gets a little nudge from, and I don't want to give it away, but she gets a little nudge from somebody, you don't know who, trying to help her help people again. I think it's always the theme with Chase's story is wherever she goes, she's going to help people in some way, and she meets different people, and there's always a little mystery around Chase, like there was in Manchester Christmas. There's another mystery that she's going to kind of unravel and solve, and in the end, she ends up helping people, which is good. In a way, I love Manchester Christmas. I told Courtney, my wife, I said, this one's a little more layered. There's even more of a mystery to it, and I kind of like that. So maybe I'm getting a little even better at doing this because I've done one before. But now, of course, I'm going back through it and changing things. So, I'll be here at midnight. If you hear anybody cursing, it might be me cursing here at midnight, trying to change things in the story. But I do like the story. It's definitely done. And Bella's back again to say hello. It's done, and I just have to go back through it now and really lock it down and tighten it up. But it's a fun story, and if you like Manchester Christmas, I think you'll really like it.
Thanks, John. I have a question for you. Can you talk a little bit about your sort of journey to find a publisher and get these books out in the world?
That's the hardest part of the whole thing. I sent God Needed a Puppy to, I think, every publisher that would. Some publishers won't look at stuff unless you have an agent. So I found the ones that would look at things if you didn't have an agent, and I got a lot of it's a really sweet book, but some didn't like the fact that it had a religious tone to it because some people aren't religious at all, and said, they don't want a book that half a children's book where half the audience won't buy it because it had God in the title, and others were like, well, it's just not for us. So I realized I exhausted all the people who would look at it, who would look at something where you didn't have an agent, and they must get 1,000 things too a day. So I then tried to get an agent, and I had no luck there, and I was about to give up, and it was late one night at work, and we had, I think, the World Series game on. I work on TV, and I was sitting at my desk at like 9 o'clock at night, and the game wasn't going to get over till midnight. I had like 3 hours to kill. And I thought, well, I've done everything I can do. I've tried. I was almost like I was talking to God, saying, I've done it all. It didn't happen. You can't blame me. I tried. And I heard a little voice going, did you try everything? Everything? Or are you missing the most obvious thing? And I thought, what's the most obvious thing? I said, well, some people didn't want to do it because it had a religious thing to it. Are there any agents out there who handle people who write religious things? So I Googled agents, literary agents who handle authors who write Christian things, and I found like 3. And I sent the book out to all 3, and one of them got right back to me. And that was a woman named Joyce Hart and Jim Hart in Pittsburgh. And they said, this is the kind of stuff we do. We love the story. Has anybody bought it yet? I said no. And then they signed on to it. I had published it myself and sold about 15,000 copies of it, which was really a lot for a self-published book. And that was thanks to people on Facebook who were so supportive. But that's how I found an agent. And then the agent found Paraclete Press, who were wonderful. So initially I was running away from the things where I should have been running towards, if that makes sense. But I had to learn that the hard way. And I found the right agent, and I found the right publisher. And it's all worked out since. But I tell people who are trying, you just have to keep trying, because you're going to hear so many no's before you ever hear a yes. Almost every author out there, the ones we all know, the really famous ones, could wallpaper their walls with rejection letters that they got on the stuff that they sent in. It's a tough world, and you just need one yes, and that's all you need, and you're off to the races.
So we have Susan in the chat asking when the sequel is coming out. And actually, Shanna, I'd love to add to that question, a question for you, which is, are you doing the cover for the sequel?
We haven't even talked about it. She'll have to read the sequel once I get it done. I have to talk about with the publisher as well. I'm assuming next Christmas. I know that Brian, the Hollywood guy, said this is an easier sell in terms of making the movies if it has a Christmas theme. And my second book sort of is set around New York City and Westchester County in the fall. So I'm sort of tweaking it a little more Christmassy. So it may be another Christmas release, so to speak. So I would think this time next year, the second one might be out, hopefully. But I don't want to get put the cart before the horse. But I think that's the plan right now. And Shanna and I haven't even talked, so we'll have to. She has no idea what the book's about, so we'll have to discuss it and figure out a way to get her involved as well.
Yep, I'd love to.
So I have another question for both of you, which is, you both have super busy non-writing or illustrating careers. How do you balance it? How do you find the time to do your creative work in addition to all of the life and work stuff that you're already doing?
You go first, Shanna.
I just, I don't know. I get spurts of time where I don't get to do a lot of art because work is just too busy. And then other times I just sit down and it just comes flowing out the paintbrush, and I lose track of time. It's like I'll be up till 2 in the morning and realize it's that late, you know. So in some ways it kind of recharges my batteries. So it's not a drain, whereas work can sometimes like pull you down and wear me out. So I turn to the art because it kind of fills your bucket, so to speak. So to me, even if I find a half an hour, it really kind of just re-energizes me. And I keep my studio set up all the time, so I can walk in and just start painting. It's not like I have to drag out the easel and get my paintbrushes, and then I'm like, well, by the time I do that, I don't have any more time to paint. So I leave things set up, and I just can walk right in and instantly get to work if I get inspired and I feel like there's something I need to capture. So that I used to have to pull it all out, and by the time you do that, it would just be like, well, now I don't have the time to do it. So then I wouldn't start the process. So I find it's easier just to have it so that I can just immediately go and paint.
Yeah, for me, I just have to carve out time. I remember going on a tour of Norman Rockwell's museum over in Stockbridge, Massachusetts, and they have a tour there, and they have a studio there. You can look at his studio that he did all that great artwork in. And one of the things I always remembered is they said that he had a ritual. He treated it like a career, like a job. And he may have nothing in his mind to paint, but he got up, he had his walk in the morning, he had his coffee or tea, he got in front of the easel and just stared at it and they treated it like, okay, there's no, like, I don't have an idea, so I'm gonna go watch The Price is Right on TV all morning. He was like, Rockwell was like, it's my job, get your butt in the studio, get going. So I try to, with the writing, carve out at least 2 days a week, if not 3, like two weekday mornings, and then like a weekend time to get in there and do it if I can. And again, just it's a matter of wanting to do it and then doing it. And if it's not happening, I won't force it. But generally, what I'll do is think about the next chapter as I'm taking a walk or doing whatever. I'm thinking about it in my head and writing it in my head, saying that'd be good if I did that. That'd be good if I did that. It's really good that it took me a while to write Manchester Christmas, because some of the best stuff that I think I came up with in there, I wouldn't have come up with it if somebody said, you've got a month to go write the book. I would have been rushed. The fact that it slowed me down because I have another life and a wife and kids and pets and a career, and it forced me to slow down. It made me have those windows of time between where I got to think about the story, and then something would knock me in the head and go, wow, that'd be really good if I did that. I didn't think of that earlier. So slow isn't the worst thing in the world, I think, sometimes.
Yeah.
Thanks. I know we've heard, Rachel and I, innumerable times, the big advice that writers give is just put your butt in the seat. I had another question for Shanna, and that is, besides your work and your illustrations for John's books, Can you tell us a little bit more about your art and where we can find more of it, or is it just for you, or what are subjects? Tell us.
I do commissions when I have the time, and I have a website with my art and a Facebook page. But sometimes I get really busy with John's stuff, so then I just focus on that because I want that to be where I put my energy. But certainly I've done commissions. I've also been inspired and touched by people that have pets and given gifts to friends and family when they've lost a special pet. So I like kind of doing it sometimes not as a job, and then other times like with John's stuff, it doesn't feel like a job, but there's a commitment to, you know, doing something and seeing it through. Whereas sometimes I just sit down and paint and nobody even has to like it. It might just be something for me. So, but it never feels like it's a struggle. It always feels fun. It doesn't feel like a job. It's more of just a passion of something I like to do and a gift that I like to share.
That's really what's remarkable, I think, about both of your work, is that the love and the joy that you feel for it really comes through in what you do.
Can I tell Shanna a secret? You know, she's read the book, and I don't know if you folks in Northshire had a chance to read it yet, but when Chase is staying at the inn and she sees the artwork of this young woman, Taylor, she finds these, you know, these paintings are sort of all kind of tossed aside. And hold on, I'm trying to plug my phone in so I don't lose my charge. Oh, it's a different one, hon. But you know, I like the fact there was one called The Broken Sunset, because there was a cloud jutting up blocking the sunset. And I kind of thought of Shanna with that. And I love the dialogue. She says to the artist's father, why would she call it that? Why don't you just get rid of it's her painting, she can get rid of the cloud. And he's like, oh, no. She wanted to, you know, she wanted that cloud there because, like, you know, it's kind of like that's the way life is. Life isn't perfect. Sometimes the cloud gets in the way. And she kind of called it that to be ironic, you know, the broken sunset. But you know, I did think of you when I wrote that little section, Shanna, because I'm sure you are the same way when you paint. It's like you'll be like, you know what, maybe that's not perfect, but I kind of like the way that came out.
Yep, that's life, exactly.
Yeah. Thanks, son.
Well, I think this has been a lovely event. Shanna, John, thank you guys so much. I really enjoyed this, and I hope you all have as well.
We have.
Well, I hope the people watching enjoyed as well. We appreciate them coming on and being part of this.
Yes, thank you so much, John and Shanna. Thank you, audience, for being here. We do Northshire live events pretty regularly, fewer in December because it gets busy in the store, but we'll be carrying on with lots of great Northshire live events as long as there's a pandemic and we're stuck at home. So you can visit northshire.com to check out more events and visit us again. And thank you.
Could I ask a quick question?
Yes, of course.
Do you guys ship, for people who are on the Facebook page watching, do you guys ship as well?
We do indeed. We've had a vast amount of shipping and more than we've ever done before during this. So, yes.
And curbside pickup also.
There you go. So there's a plug for you guys as well. And at some point I'll get up there and sign some copies for you if you want. And then it'll get them out there as well. Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Have a good evening.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Night.